This is Colin Liddell, the Chief Editor of Alternative Right, and this is designed to be a short 5 to 10 minute long podcast about matters relating to the site and briefly commenting on the issues of the day. And today is Friday, April the 21st, 2017. Regarding the site, probably the biggest thing to mention is that we are no longer using Disqus. There were clashes between Disqus and Blogger, which we were unable to resolve. So now we are just using Blogger's own in-house system of commenting. The main difference probably is that you cannot upload images or videos quite so easily, although you can post links to anything that is relevant. Now, the main issue of the day that I'd like to comment on is the French election. At the moment, we are coming up to the first round. Now, let me just make this very, very clear. The French election, the French presidential election, has 2 rounds. They are 1 month apart. The first round, I think that takes place this Sunday. Today it is now Friday as I speak. And the second round takes place a month later, or 4 weeks later. In the first round, there are many candidates, and in the second round, there will be 2 candidates. Of course, if somebody gets more than 50% of the vote in the first round, there is no second round. That is simply not going to happen this time because there are 4 candidates who all have roughly between 18 to 24% of the vote each. There's a center-left candidate, Macron. There's a center-right candidate, Fillon. There's a hard-left candidate, Mélenchon, and there is a so-called hard-right candidate, Le Pen. So it's kind of interesting that 3 of the candidates' names all end in on. Mélenchon, Macron, and Fillon. So we've got on. And they're all opposed to Le Pen, or N. Now, just looking at the numbers briefly, Mélenchon, the hard-left candidate, he's scoring around about 18, 19, 19.5% in recent opinion polls. The centre-right candidate, Fillon, he's scoring 19, 20, 21% in recent polls. Macron, he's getting usually 23, 24%. That looks quite consistent. Le Pen seems to be getting about 21.5%, 22% in most opinion polls. Some opinion polls 22.5%. So Macron is the pollsters' favourite. Now, of course, opinion polls don't always translate into votes. And I would say that Le Pen's vote is much more committed, much more hardcore than Macron. I would even say that Mélenchon and Fillon's vote is more hardcore than Macron. But I think because Macron has quite a few percentage points on Fillon and Mélenchon, about 4 or 5 percentage points, I think he'll do well enough to get into the second round. But I think Le Pen will probably come top, partly helped by the recent terrorist incident in the Champs-Élysées. So my prediction for the first round is Le Pen first, Macron second. So the centre-left candidate will then go up against the so-called hard-right candidate in the second round 1 month later. By that time, I guess we probably will have had another 1 or 2 terrorist incidents, but who knows? Now, who will win between Macron and Le Pen? Now, of course, the conventional wisdom is that Macron will win easily because The socialists and the conservative voters of Mélenchon and Fillon will then all unify with Macron's soft left or center left supporters to keep out the evil, fascist, racist, Nazi Hitler who wants to kill 6 million Jews, Le Pen. But I think that that analysis is, which probably was true when Jean-Marie Le Pen was the candidate a decade or so ago. That definitely was true. I don't think it's quite as true this time. The Front National, they appealed to a lot of the conservative voters on issues of national security and protecting La France. So I think a lot of Fillon's supporters, instead of going to Macron, they will go to Le Pen. Also, I think Macron's a rather kind of like rootless cosmopolitan type with a bit of a gay atmosphere. I mean, one of the most interesting things about him is he's actually living with a woman, his partner, who used to be his school teacher, which strikes me as incredibly odd, and probably she might just be a beard for his gay lifestyle. Who knows? Also, Mélenchon, a lot of these hard left voters will be very reluctant to vote for Macron. Probably a lot of them will abstain. Some of them will probably even go to Le Pen. So I think there's a very good chance that Le Pen will pick up a lot of conservative votes from Fillon and socialist votes from Mélenchon, whereas Macron's voters will be less committed. He'll be less able to unify the anti-Le Pen bloc. And for that reason, I kind of think Le Pen has a very good chance of winning. Now, also, I guess the fact that she's a woman is kind of interesting. Okay, this didn't really work out too well for Hillary, we all know. But, Hillary is Hillary. I think, generally speaking, being a woman is a bit of an advantage in today's politics in Western European countries. And, you see the same thing in Germany. Merkel, despite all the kind of insane, mad things she's actually responsible for, she is still in a very strong position. And it almost looks like she's certain to be re-elected, unbelievably. Then in the UK, we have Theresa May. And, this woman, Theresa May, there's nothing particularly remarkable or distinguished about her, but she managed to kind of come through the middle and take over the Conservative Party. So women tend to have certain unfair advantages in the present European electoral culture. Now, I was kind of reading up on leadership and the different kinds of leaders that people have gravitated towards over the years. And I was reading an article in New Scientist from 2008, an article called Follow Me by Mark van Vugt. And Van Vugt is some kind of social scientist, and let me just quote from the article. More controversially, evolution might explain our bias towards male leaders in most circumstances. When men and women work together, men are quicker to claim leadership roles, even when women are better qualified. Moreover, a recent experiment by myself and Brian Spisak, also at the University of Kent, to be published in Psychological Science later this year, revealed that groups tend to look to men for leadership when faced with a threat from another group, possibly because intergroup conflict would have been resolved by force throughout most of human history. However, we also found that in situations where there is internal conflict in a group, women are the preferred and most effective leaders. This is confirmed by a recent mock election study which found that people tended to vote for a male president when their country was at war, but a female during peacetime. A history of intergroup conflict might have predisposed men to adopt a hierarchical leadership style, while a need for social unity might have equipped women with a more egalitarian, personalized, and communal style. Okay, now we're kind of drifting into leftist academic spin here, but going back to the kind of the gist of what this research revealed. Basically, it says that when there is an external threat, people prefer the strong male leader. But when there is internal conflict, people kind of feel that, you know, a woman can bring people together. She can soften those harsh divisions and those jagged edges. You could say that, you know, France or the French people are under threat. There is an external threat. Therefore, they're going to go for a male president. But actually, let's look at it in very harsh terms. Muslims are not exactly a real threat to the French. If the French wanted to, they could kick them out of their country tomorrow. They'd have to maybe find somewhere to kick them out to, but you know, I'm sure that could be arranged. There's nothing the Muslims themselves could do to stop that happening. So militarily, these third world immigrant populations are very, very weak, and it's only our own weakness that makes it possible for them to colonize our countries and gradually take over. So what we're really faced with in the Western world are stupid internal divisions between left and right, between people who want to morally signal and people who are a bit more realistic about what's going to happen further on down the road. All over the West, I think we have these very, very divided societies, and they're divided societies of white people. And I think it strikes me that Marine Le Pen is playing her hand very much in that direction. She's, she's not as polarizing as her father was. She's making a lot of good moves. She's sending out a lot of interesting signals, and that is why the Front National is in a very good position to pick up votes from the socialist side and from the conservative side. So I think she's actually been implementing a long-term strategy, and she's actually thought about, you know, how the election was going to play out, and she's focused on how she could maximize her vote in the second round. So it's a hard one to call the French election because, of course, the establishment is very, very much against her. We've had this, rather worrying story about voters in the French overseas territories being given 2 votes each through some kind of administrative error or glitch in the system. And you know, like Stalin famously said, it's not so important who actually votes. It's much more important who counts the votes. But assuming there is no major electoral fraud, I kind of get the feeling that Le Pen will win the French election. So, to stick my neck out on this one, and remember I did correctly predict Trump's victory months and months in advance, and I successfully predicted the Brexit vote. So bearing that in mind, I am now going to put my reputation on the line and predict that Marine Le Pen will, against expectations, win the second round of the French election. So on that bombshell, over and out.